Well, Colonel Gaddafi is clearly overthrown. That much is by now abundantly obvious. And yet, still from him, an extraordinary effort to try and negotiate passed through his mouthpiece today. A little bit more on that later in the programme. Tripoli itself remains an extraordinary place where nothing is straightforward. Much of the city still without water, electricity intermittent. And it's fair to say it is indeed a city where life itself can be precarious. More sites of alleged war crimes are coming to light all the time. Amnesty International claims there's evidence that 31 prisoners were executed by pro-Gaddafi forces at 2 military camps in Khilit al-Firjan and Qasr bin Ghashir. Human Rights Watch says 18 bullet-ridden bodies were discovered near the Colonel Gaddafi stronghold of Bab al-Azizia, 2 with their hands tied. Nearby, 29 corpses were also found showing signs of execution. Well, today I went to Salah ed-Din, that's to the base of the feared Khamis 32nd Brigade, where at least 50 people were killed on Tuesday night. As we arrived, it was clear that tensions were still running high there, a warning some of you may find some of the images disturbing.
Approaching the vast gates of Khamis base in South Tripoli. Moments later, chaos, fear, terror, as first a few, then up to 9 African men are shoved into a gatehouse, arrested by anti-Gaddafi forces.
These are Gaddafi fighters. Gaddafi fighters.
They're terrified, sweating, praying, some are crying. They're convinced they're going to be shot. They keep whispering to us, stay here with us, stay here, please. Celebratory gunfire increases their terror.
Because we are innocent. We are innocent.
We are scared. We are scared.
Listen, we're going to stay here because whilst we're here, they're not going to do anything to these guys. Right? These 9 men insist they're just 9 young men from Nigeria who are trying to get through Africa to Italy for a better life.
At this point, the fighters' story that they were found with weapons seems suddenly to evaporate. They're let out.
If they see the women, it's okay. That's how we get out of this.
A decision to try and film their women nearby to prove they're not Colonel Gaddafi's mercenaries ends it all. They can cool off and go, but what if we hadn't been there? This is a bad time to be a black man in Libya. Our surprises were far from over. A fighter suddenly produced at least a dozen photo IDs dated 2009 of British men connected to this base. In Arabic, they're entitled collaborators of the 32nd Brigade, led by Khamis, one of Colonel Gaddafi's sons. One has the job description engineer, the others are blank. There's no evidence these men had any connection with recent atrocities at this base whatsoever. On that, more leads today. Channel 4 News found 3 witnesses, Ahmed Tayul, Salam Abdul, and another still too frightened to be identified. Interviewed separately, they corroborate each other. The 3 soldiers threw grenades into this shed, then sprayed the prisoners with automatic gunfire. Then set the place ablaze. I counted 53 skulls in here. Few had bullet holes consistent with being individually shot in the head, thus corroborating again what the witnesses said.
If it is the scene of a potential war crime, then the ghastly things inside that shed are unlikely to be preserved in the chaos here. They want to bury these people and the dead bodies lying around here outside. But there's evidence perhaps of some prior preparation and organisation. Wagons around here, clearly capable of transporting people to this place. If you look across the courtyard the other side, earth movers and what appears to be some attempt to dig hurriedly mass graves, which were of course never filled.
We can't show any of it, but there are bodies all over this area, many with hands and feet tied prior, apparently, to execution. No doubt none of the British working here had anything to do with this kind of thing. But their presence does prove just how close Britain was, cozying up to Colonel Gaddafi, his system, his military.
Well, now back to that extraordinary reported offer of talks from Colonel Gaddafi, clearly a man who's lost his country but refuses to accept that he's lost his job. All this just days after the colonel said that the rebels would, quote, be hunted down like rats. Well, today his chief spokesman, Musa Ibrahim, who remains at large, telephoned the Associated Press agency saying the colonel wanted to form a transitional government with the rebels. The offer, you'll not be surprised to hear, rejected both by anti-Gaddafi forces and by the respective NATO governments.
There is no negotiation. It wasn't negotiation before. It will be no negotiation. They are criminals who are running from justice, and we are following them as criminals. We are not talking to them. We're going to arrest them.
Well, that's all for now from Tripoli. We're back a little later in the programme, but now back to you in London, Krishnan.
Thanks, Alex.